Hopefully you remember me from the retreat that was held June 5th and 6th at Kings Mill Resort. I am the executive director for Planning, Analytics, and Institutional Research. And so part of my role is to help facilitate the process of the strategic plan for the university.
Great. We're so happy to have you, and I really do appreciate it. So I'll just do the welcome. Yes, David?
Before you just get started, I just wanted to remind everyone, we are streaming this meeting on YouTube. And so public meeting, and it is being streamed.
Right. And David made sure all the appropriate notices went out ahead of time. So we have done that in compliance with the requirements. So thank you for reminding everyone, David. Thank you. A couple things I just wanted to thank everybody for joining, and also thank Steve for stepping up to be the assistant or vice chair of the committee. I know that we sent you a lot of information, but we put a lot of time into it. I really do appreciate David and Chris, all the work, because I know it was a lot. We had several revisions before it got to you guys, and we'll probably revise it more before we get it to the full board. So I want to say thank you. And then just start off with a reminder that our role as board members is to set the broad vision and the strategic objectives, and then to have the measurements. And then it's really Jim's job with all of his team to say, how are they going to do it? And we thought we knew kind of where the direction we were going, but I really appreciate Jim's comments. The 5 areas that we have focused, he's pulling those in, but we're going to get a lot of input from faculty, from stakeholders, from the community, and those may change. So this gives him some time. He'll come back to us and with some deliverables in November, and then for phase 1, and then phase 2 by April, and then phase 3 is really implementation. So I think this time is to gather support, momentum, get clarity. There'll be a lot of great ideas out there, and then pull them into overall priority. So our goal is really the development of the strategic plan, kind of the what, and then Jim's role is executing the how, and all of that, the team. And there's a lot of visioning sessions that he's done. I know from my past experience, and Carly, I'm thinking about you, my middle square stuff. I look at you on boards with strategic planning. There's a tendency sometimes for us to get involved in the details, and we can ask questions, but we really do, expect them to do that and not try to get too much into the operational parts of that. Our goal is to come back with maybe 5 to 10 measures that we look at, and are we on track for what we said we agreed to do. So I really do appreciate it, and appreciate the respect that we have leading together for his boundaries and our boundaries. And when we cross over, just politely remind ourselves. And if I do it, I want you guys to call me out on it as well. So I think that'll be a healthy plan going forward. Any questions before we go into the overview document? Okay, we sent out ahead the overview document, and it is also on the onboard portal. And right here, I'm just going to hit a couple highlights of that. First of all, the terminology that we're using is different. This is the terminology that Jim has used at his previous university, and he's very familiar with it. So we went ahead and just adapted that. So we do have 3 phases. The first is adopting the pillars and the guideposts, and that's really what we're focusing on for November. And then adopt the entire plan in April, and then provide quarterly updates. And are there any questions about the strategic planning vision and our role? Because we've got it kind of mapped out by month. No questions at all? Okay. I know, because I'm an extrovert, extroverts have a tendency to talk a lot, and introverts don't say much. So I'm going to call on anyone that doesn't say anything to make sure everybody's voice is heard in this meeting. So with that, I'll just turn it over to David to go over the timeline review if there's no questions about our involvement in this document that I just mentioned. And this is really kind of the bulk of it. We want your feedback on things that we need to change to make it more clear for the board when we present. David?
Thank you, Terry. And I know I speak for the president as well, and just saying thank you to Terry, and it's been wonderful to work together. Terry also asked me to give an update on how we've gotten to this point. So I'll talk more about the timeline, and we'll refer to those, the documents that we have in the portal, which we've also recently updated. Let me just see. I just got also a note from Nicole, and I'm going to make sure she's got all that she needs here as well. So how we got to this point, During his university welcome, President Schmidt announced the beginning of the planning process, encouraged everyone to share their ideas, and already at that, so up in the basketball stadium, we had almost 2,000 faculty and staff there, QR code sharing ideas, and then at lunch afterwards, all the tables had QR codes to be able to share in ideas, and so it really begun. President Schmidt also was able to tease some great ideas to begin to get the campus thinking of big and bold and innovative ideas to get us started. Our co-chairs are now in place, who are going to be really the faces of the plan to the campus and are going to be a key part of building buy-in. And so those co-chairs are Dr. Bethany Blackstone, who's the Dean of the Honors College, Dr. Duran Allen, who's Associate Vice President for Student Development and Community Building, and then Sheila Smith, who's in Philanthropy Engagement. She's an Associate Vice President for Advancement Planning. They will be supported by our logistics co-chairs, who are myself, Chris Oram, who you met, and then also Jennifer Campfield, who's in Academic Affairs and Assistant Vice President. A couple documents that you may not have seen yet that were uploaded today. We've developed a visual diagram of the plan and then a more detailed diagram. And part of the goal there is that we want people to be able to see at every point what we're doing, a transparent process, see what their on-ramps are for their involvement. And of course, all of those co-chairs in helping us get that out. So you'll see those in a second. And when I'm walking through the timeline, I'll be referencing some of that as well. The division heads and President Jim continue to consider the ideas from our retreat in July, which I know that the president's going to be talking a little bit more about in his assessment. Most weeks, we're meeting Mondays and Thursdays as a division head team with the co-chairs, making progress on strategic planning. And normally these are an hour and a half meetings. A full hour of that is dedicated to strategic planning. And we've been able to make a lot of progress. And I will say it's one of the benefits of President Schmidt is not new to strategic planning, and he knows how to lead us and guide us. And that's been incredibly helpful to be guided into those bold ideas. The next steps that we had, which we're already well underway, was to develop a communications plan for the campus, as well as a website. And I convened the lead team this morning with Mary Hope Voss, who's our spokesperson. So we're developing that as well and are well underway. Any questions so far before I get to the timeline on the progress that we've made so far in any of those updates?
David, I do have a question. Has there been, or President Schmidt as well, what has been the reaction so far to the 5 pillars? Obviously, we're sort of starting there. So do people feel like that's right? Are they excited? Do people feel as though something's missing?
Did you want to answer that, President Schmidt?
Thank you for the question. I think that they make sense. I think they become self-evident. I think an understanding from the campus and the constituencies that we've been talking to understand that it recognizes the strength of the foundation of the institution, those key components that they know are necessary to drive JMU to the next level, even though we still need to define that. As I said in June, I think that it gives us a great framework, and I think can encompass almost any of the ideas that would be in keeping with that vision to have us move forward. So I think the short end of that question is I think they've done a nice job of describing particularly those key areas that we believe are necessary to move us forward. There seems to be a lot of congruence in that sentiment.
Well, I ask because obviously starting strong is important. So if people are embracing those, that's good.
Yes.
And I will say anecdotally, and not just because he's my boss, I think there's a real palpable sense on campus of excitement that the ideas that the president's bringing, and there's a real appetite for an accelerated timeline for this. So I think that is helpful that the board has obviously helped us accelerate the timeline. It's obviously quick for higher education, but the campus really feels like they're ready for those bigger ideas and for more meat on the bones. Jeff, did you have a question?
I did. I just wanted to follow up on Carly's question about other people's responses. Have we heard anything from either Chev or the Secretary of Education or higher headquarters or anything, outside of the university, alumni, or the faculty?
So I have not presented any details to Chev or to the secretary. What I have done, though, with each body is start to test various strategies and ideas around that. I lead with the notion that I would like JMU to become the preferred partner for businesses and nonprofits in the Commonwealth. And what I mean, and I'll go on and say what does that mean to be the preferred partner? We may not be the right partner for every specific issue that they might have to address, but I want us to be the preferred partner. So they're going to want to start with us and see if we have the expertise to help them solve the problem. And we'd be the preferred partner because we've shown ourselves to be nimble, agile, entrepreneurial, innovative, fill in all those words. And I think my actions have been speaking loudly with each of those groups as well. They've seen that I've put on more than 3,000 miles, that I've had more than 62 individual meetings with individual business leaders across the Commonwealth, in addition to reaching out with their alumni. So I think there's very much an appetite for this acceleration agenda for JMU as well. There are certainly implications where the strategic plan may go that we're going to need their support. I will say, Jeff, that we've had, I think, outstanding initial meetings with the secretary. And I had a really good one-on-one meeting with Scott from Chev while he visited campus. And I think that there's an appetite to help us in this effort.
I would just add for the faculty. So we have a lunch with the Faculty Senate Steering Committee in early September, and I'll get into, on your initial timeline, you had a lot of to be determined. There are very few of those now because we have made a lot of progress in scheduling these and the faculty. So I met this morning with Bethany Blackstone, who's the co-chair of strategic planning for us, and making more, making clear to her, this is such a transparent process. We want all of these details for the Faculty Senate faculty to see these, to be involved in them, to understand it, and to know the ways in which they're going to be, involved in it. And so she's going to be our main liaison to the Faculty Senate, although we're meeting directly with them as well. I guess I didn't want to forget as well, President Schmidt spoke to all of academic affairs, including all faculty, also had dinner with all of the new faculty. So there's been a lot of already great interface for President Schmidt and our faculty too.
Suzanne?
Terry, I wasn't going to interject because this is your meeting and I wanted you all to do the strategic plan, but I was on a rector's call with the 15 rectors yesterday with Secretary Gadara, and strategic planning is a key focus of Chev right now, and they've got their interim strategic goals on the website, and they're supposed to send us a link to that so that we can pass that along to you all. Whoops, I dropped you. Do y'all still hear me?
Yes, we can. We can see you also.
Okay, well, I lost you on my screen. Anyway, I just wanted you to know that I will be passing along to David once the Secretary's office sends me the link for the Chev goals to see if we are, somewhat aligned since they're adopting theirs in October.
Great. And also, before David continues, just we do have a meeting with Chev on Tuesday, so this would be a good time to at least explain the foundation that we already have with our strategic plan, so how it aligns with that strategic plan as well. David, you want to continue?
Great. Yep. I was going to say, if you're okay, Madam Chair, we'll continue. We'll start with this document. You have the document that is organized based on role, so that you are very clear based on where some of your entry is. There's also a new document there that is our timeline. That's more of a visual. And so with the permission of the committee, I think we'll update that document. We have 4 stages that President Schmidt outlined in his welcome speech, which we've listed as listen, envision, create, and implement, which are very clear and organized ways to see this. But I want to work from the document that you've seen and you're familiar with. And Chris, are you able to bring that up? And again, the great news is my understanding is I think some of the only to be determined dates are this committee, and to make sure that we have the dates for the in-between meetings, the special meetings before the board meetings. We are already scheduling and have nearly scheduled all of the meetings with colleges, units, and divisions for those to be launched. And our first one is actually today with philanthropy and engagement. So we're off to the races to launch those. We've also scheduled, you'll see August 20th, launch the idea forums. We've scheduled all of the idea forums. And so you'll see that on that other visual diagram, detailed diagram, where all of those dates are for the idea forums. Board of Visitors is going to review initial plans at September 18th. So we'll give an update from this committee to the Board of Visitors there. And I think for all of you to keep an eye on those visioning sessions, if there's one that you'd like to attend, please keep us updated. We'd love to have you involved. October, we will be providing visioning recommendations from President Schmidt, and with key pillars and guidepost goals. So October 13th is our plan to be able to get that to you all. And we still need to schedule that October meeting, but those will be coming to you. And then October 21st, so very, very quickly, we will be identifying and contacting chairs for the vision teams. And so as we develop these, those co-chairs will be especially content experts on whatever is developed there. And so we'll be identifying those based on leaders on campus who can lead that as well. And that'll be October 21st. I've also asked Chris to jump in if I'm missing anything. And of course, President Schmidt is as familiar with this as anyone. The piece I want to highlight next is a very key date for all of us, which is the November board meeting. November 14th, you'll see with the review and approval of the Board of Visitors, we will be providing feedback on vision teams and pillars. And we will, at that point, with the approval of the board, be doing an all call to campus for these vision teams. And so anyone who wants to self-nominate or nominate someone else will be putting their names in the hat. And of course, we will be reviewing those as a team, as division head, steering committee, and then the co-chairs for developing those teams. It's not going to be anybody and everybody who wants to be part of a team. We want to make sure it's people who want to advance the mission of the university, don't have necessarily an axe to grind in a particular issue, but are ready for a productive and forward-looking conversation on those things. Chris, what else would you add at this point? So the Board of Visitors endorsing key pillars and guidepost goals are really key. And then we're going to announce those off the back of that to the campus. That's really going to begin to be kind of the meat on the bones moment for, okay, how do we then begin to develop these much more concretely? You'll also notice a cadence, and again, Chris, feel free to jump in here. Balancing, of course, Christmas break and making sure a 9-month instructional faculty are involved. It's, transparent. They feel like the cadence is around their ability to be engaged here. And so we're going to have a kickoff meeting for the vision team co-chairs already on December 2nd. You'll see that there. We'll select the members of the vision team, and we'll send then invitations after that meeting on December 3rd for those to serve on the vision team. So before Christmas break, we will be organizing those vision teams. And then the strategic planning committee, of course, you see there reviewing pillars there. Before break as well, we're going to hold a kickoff meeting for all vision team members. And the vision teams are actually going to begin meeting. So in December 11th, they're going to begin meeting. And it's going to be helpful, I think, as we're sensitive to the cadence of Christmas break, but already they'll be meeting and ideas will be developed. The juices will be flowing. They'll be taking, somewhat of a break. Of course, we take much less of a break here as administrators. At that January mark, whenever your special meeting is of this committee, you'll be receiving reports from that and being able to provide feedback as well. Any questions at this point on the timeline? And Chris, please feel free to jump in if I've missed anything. The vision teams are really going to be a sprint, and we find this actually to be a really highly valued asset because what we think is that it's also going to allow busy 9-month instructional faculty who are content experts, who are often juggling, do I spend the time on a grant application or on my book proposal or something of that nature, that they know this is very contained. This is just a few weeks and it's a sprint in order to develop that. It also focuses these meetings so that they're focused on, bringing those big, bold ideas as well. They're going to meet weekly. They're going to refine those guidepost goals. And then the strategic planning committee, of course, is going to be meeting and hearing those updates to develop that report for the Board of Visitors. Terry?
David, in September, each one of the members of the strategic planning committee are chairs of a committee, with the exception of Carly. What do you want? And Michael's not here, so Carly, you could probably speak through the advancement committee. What would you like on the agenda, or is it time or appropriate for something on the agenda? What questions would you have of those committees, or is there anything that they need to be thinking through the lens of a committee chair in September?
I may ask the president that question as well to come in here. I mean, the good news is all of the vice presidents, the university liaison are in these meetings with us, are very updated, thoroughly, engaged in it. We've spent a lot of time rather than on the kind of minutia of show and tell. on idea generation, and I'm thinking of the bold ideas. And so, some, I think, update and conversation on how that is. And we see the value, this particular board with all of the expertise and the high level leaders, there may be some value to, share some initial ideas there, but I'll defer to the president.
So, the meat on the bone stage, which will start in November, is where the vice presidents will know exactly kind of what the overarching pillars, what the guidepost goals are going to be. And so they'll be able to adapt their work directly onto that. But even at this stage, we know that, at least from my perspective, the guidepost goals are really around student outcomes. And so every single major initiative that's going on at the institution needs to be put through the lens of where we think we're going to be heading with the strategic plan. I'll give you an example. I had an update earlier this week on re-engineering Madison, and the power of data being able to come together, how we look at our systems. I immediately have asked them to begin thinking about how do we use this data more strategically to improve student retention, freshman to sophomore retention. We hit a milestone of 92% this past year. I could imagine a guidepost goal that might bring it, say, to 95. We'll have that conversation. I think everyone knows every micro percentage above 92 gets harder and harder to get. So how can we pull all of this data together? And even if the current data wouldn't allow it, as we're building re-engineering Madison, what are those other data elements that might be useful? An example, everyone swipes to go through food service when they're going to go in to have a meal. They swipe their dormitory room in order to get into the room. My previous institution took a look at that data and used that to help predict student outcome. They haven't shown up in the cafeteria for 3 or 4 days. Maybe that's an early alert, and we ought to follow up with them. If we found out they haven't been staying in their dormitory, just having the RA swing by to say, how are things going? So we're starting to set this larger vision that's going to be really focused on student outcomes. And then underneath it will be the strategies that we know will come. And certainly that's true for academic student affairs. But as I just used an example, IT, administration, finance. And of course, go to the other side with advancement. We know we need to start finding resources to fund these things. So again, I apologize. It's a long answer, but I will tell you the VPs are already thinking about some of these ideas. So there can be some of that conversation, but the big piece will be once the board has agreed on what those major pillars are going to be and what those guidepost goals will be.
Well, what I would ask the committee chairman, is there an open-ended question that would be beneficial to the process to ask at each committee meeting through the lens of that? So I'm thinking like Steve Smith through the lens of the finance committee. Is there an open-ended question that would be helpful for board members to prompt their thinking to be able to contribute back to what the process that you're doing, or is it too early? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I don't know if you're asking me, but I think that you could ask an open-ended question, something along the lines, given some of the early thinking within the strategic plan, some of the early conversation you had. What do you see in your division as an opportunity to amplify some of the larger ideas that are coming forward? Just an open-ended question that will allow them to imagine that.
Right. All right, I'll circle back at the end for that. So keep going, David.
Yeah, that's great. And I don't want to belabor this, but I want to highlight some really key entry points. So you'll see the Board of Visitors review interim reports. We envision at the committee meeting on February 11th that the co-chairs of the vision teams, the more specific level, will update this committee on their progress. And that'll be a good opportunity for conversations and entry points for this committee as well. Of course, February 12th, the update provided to the Board of Visitors for final revision and feedback. If we go,
can I just jump in on that? I just want to kind of set the stage for the timing of all of this. Is that we, as David mentioned earlier, we're trying to be aware of the cadence of the schedules for faculty and the fact that there's a very tight time frame between the November when we believe that we'd have like kind of an official announcement of what these pillars and goals will be, getting then the vision teams off the ground and then getting them started, especially with the break and the fact that many faculty aren't back on campus until right around that January 20th start of classes. And so we imagine that to make sure that faculty feel like they're being that they know that they're being included in the process and that we're cognizant of that. Some vision teams, depending on their makeup, may not be able to really start their work in earnest until that January 20th. And once they start, they're going to be starting hard and starting and moving fast. So there will probably be varying levels of updates that are going to be available at that February 11th meeting, because that's only a couple weeks after these teams have started. And so we'll have a better sense as we get going as to what to expect from that and how you all may want those updates structured. But just from an expectation standpoint, those teams will be working hard, but they'll probably be in the preliminary stages of their work and some may have more to share than others, depending on when they're actually able to start in January. So I just wanted to make that point clear and understanding that the cadence.
And I would just add that it is about shared governance, making sure our faculty involved. It's also for us about the high value of the content expertise that our faculty bring. And so if we're talking about healthcare goals, we've got those who've dedicated their lives and have PhDs and publish on these topics. We really want their involvement because that adds a lot of value. So a couple more pieces here. Of course, the final reports for feedback, March 13th. That's a date that we are obviously sprinting towards. And the division heads are going to finalize pillars and guidepost goals and strategies. Note also that the implementation team is being formed at that time as well. And President Schmidt has been very, very clear. Oftentimes, there's so much work goes into the plan that everyone's so exhausted at the end that implementation is not central. We are making implementation central. We want to see this plan implemented and successful and moving JMU forward. And so the teams are going to be formed in March, as you can see there, crafting timelines and processes. And of course, that's going to be entering a big responsibility of the board as well that we'll be updating, especially in the summer. So drafting initial timelines, implementation teams in March 30th. The report is going to be shared with you all at this committee. And then there's going to be public comment before our board meeting there, which will be very essential as well. Can we go forward? Of course, the Board of Visitors considering and approving the plan. The implementation team is going to be crafting timelines. And I think we could think of that as an endpoint, but I want to highlight more moving forward here into May. Updates, we're going to provide updates to you all for how the implementation is going. This committee is going to help us develop timelines and propose resources and benchmarks and performance metrics. So the work is going to continue at full speed ahead into the summer. And of course, approving of implementation timeline and goals that this committee is going to look to even into June. So Madam Chair, we're glad to answer any questions. And I just want to remind, I know a couple of people came in late. This is a timeline that is based on roles. We have a detailed diagram that is more based on chronology, and that may be helpful to look as you look at entry points on campus when the vision, vision teams are being formed, but also these envisioning meetings where you might want to put on your calendar to join. You'll see those more specifically on there based on that chronology. And we're going to be professionalizing more of that heading up to this board meeting for us here in September.
So let's do a quick check-in to see if there are any questions. Jeff, anything that you would like to add, or is there anything missing? Carly?
Two questions, actually. And if it's not appropriate here, we can save it for another meeting. But my questions are around choices and culture change. With regard to choices, of course, a strategic plan is actually about choices, choosing what to do and choosing what not to do. And in my experience, and I know in all of your experience, one of the things that happens after a big, exciting visioning exercise is the necessity to choose. We're going to do this. We're not going to do this. We're going to invest heavily here. We're not going to invest heavily there. So I'm interested in how President Schmidt and David and Chris, how you think about the process in this very tight timeline. This is a very aggressive timeline, which is great. What's the process for choosing and letting people know what the choices are? The second question has to do with culture change. President Schmidt, in your opening comments, you said, you know, one of the things we want to do to be a preferred partner is to be entrepreneurial and innovative and bold. Those are culture words. That's about the culture of an organization. And of course, we have a lot to work with, but changing culture is always the hardest part of implementing a strategic plan. So talk to me a little bit about the process for culture, the timeline for culture change, which I think is not here. And again, if these are questions we should come back to at another time, just let me know.
Well, those are large questions. Let me see if I can be a little more brief than I normally would. Let me start with culture. First of all, we're building on a very strong culture to begin with. That notion of student focus, that idea, if it's good for students, this university will figure out a way to get behind it. So that's amazing, and I don't want to touch that. A piece of culture that was identified during my leadership team meeting, though, was getting around your specific part of the question, and that is the institution has also been very risk adverse. The idea of ever having anything show up in an audit is so, I'll use the word terrifying, that we're not only going to go beyond any reasonable standard, we're gonna jet past it at another football field distance away from anything. My belief is that if you're not making some mistakes, if an idea hasn't worked out, you're not being aggressive enough in doing that. So I think that needs to start at the top. And obviously that's, there's a little bit of caution around that, right? It doesn't mean we make uninformed decisions, and we need to evaluate the risk, but going into it, we need to have eyes wide open. We recognize this may not work out, whatever that initiative is. So I think that is something that's needed in order to get to becoming a more innovative, entrepreneurial in your approach. Entrepreneurs seldom hit 5 out of 5 businesses that they try to attempt. Probably 4 of the first 5 failed. It might have been after a big success or before they ever had success. So I think that's something that needed to start with my executive leadership team. And I said, I'm encouraging them to do the same. Part of that is also so that we're not micromanaging every step. One of my big concerns with large organizations is if you have 6 levels between the president and the frontline staff, is any one of those middle managers could say no. And it takes all of them to say yes in order to get something brought to me. So I've tried to shift that as how we do our operations within it. I've made it clear that we need to be leading and making decisions based on, our core objectives, our core mission, and that if we have agreement as a leadership team about how we make decisions, these decisions can be pushed down further in the structure. So I've made it clear, I don't want to have to oversee everything. You should pass that down so that getting decisions closer, that makes us more nimble. This notion of a frontline staff person that makes a decision and said, well, if I do it for one, I got to do it for everyone. That isn't true. We have thinking people who can make good judgments based on those core beliefs. But that'll be a process, Carly. And I think that given at least how it's been reported to me, this will take years to get done, but we have to first start by demonstrating we know how to do it at the top and by not penalizing people who've made decisions based on the right principles that maybe the initiative didn't work out. If I go to choices, I'm a pragmatist at heart. So I'm going to take a look at whatever our large goals are that we're trying to get done. And then I'm going to ask the question, what's it going to take to achieve it? If you can use that defining question, I found that at my last institution, we've all agreed this is what we want, but we often don't ask, what's it going to take to do that? Because you either do what it takes, meaning you take the actions, which it might mean killing some sacred cows about how we've always done something, which gets to culture. It could be, these are the dollars necessary to make this done, these kinds of investments. If we're not willing to make those decisions, then I would argue we either don't have the courage or we've picked the wrong goal if we really can't stomach making those decisions. So that's how those choices will eventually get made. I'll also say I have a bit of a financial tightness about me. My wife would say I'm cheap. I say I'm value oriented. So as I talk to various vice presidents and leaders at the institution, I make it clear before we make additional investments in your areas in order to achieve these goals, I want you to demonstrate not only to me, but to your colleagues that you've already been through your structure to make sure that you've got it, you've made the necessary adjustments necessary to achieve it. And then you're coming to the leadership team, including me, to ask for additional resources to get to the strategic goal. Then we can be more confident in investing more. Kind of a quick overview, maybe longer winded than I intended.
That's good. And I think you can weave it into your comments about the first 45 days on transparency and communication as well.
Okay.
Thank you for that question, Carly. And I'm going to go on to Nicole. Could you, any comments that you have through the lens of the academic committee or questions on the timeline?
Can you hear me okay? We're having outages here,
Yes.
so I apologize. I think the one thing that might be helpful, and maybe for all committees, honestly, because there's so much engagement already through the faculty and staff from academic excellence, would just be something maybe to the greater public that like a status that we all agree on, some messaging from each chair as to kind of goalposts that we've reached and what we've been, what we're all comfortable with sharing. Just in our report, in our committee chairs report.
I think that's a great idea, David and Jim. I think as we get to before the board meeting next time, if we could have like a standard template for the chairs to say, here's the key things that we want to communicate, I think this would be helpful. So we're all hearing the same thing. And I did have a request similar to Nicole, is maybe at our September meeting, we also have an overall communication plan, like what's going out to the public, what's going out to the faculty, and we know we're getting the updates from Jim from the board, just so we have all the committee chairs have a big picture and the board members of who's getting what information. So there's a synchronization there. So if you could give that some thought, that would be, I think that would solve what Nicole's looking for.
And Terry, I'll just make note, that'll be a sharing, so I convened the leads this morning to work on a communication plan, and I'll just make sure that we update you all on what that looks like and welcome feedback on things that we're missing. But
you can identify the various stakeholders and how you're communicating, that would be helpful.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm sure Mary Hope's already kind of figured out a template and how this is going to be messaged. So they could be just tweaked a little bit by the chairs to tailor a little bit more to the jurisdiction of the committee. But yeah, I think it'd be helpful. I think everyone's wondering, right? So
okay.
It'd be
good comment. Okay. Is Jack in a seat? I can't tell. Yep, there he is. Hey, Jack. What comments or questions or thoughts do you have on the timeline? What's missing or what do you need that's not there?
So I think the timeline is great. There's one thing that I see that's particularly valuable, and that is the integration of faculty and other university stakeholders. I just think it's a welcome and operational manifestation of shared governance, which David touched upon. And I think that's going to add elements to the foundation that's going to make this strategic plan endure. So I like what we're doing.
Okay. In the comments, Carly mentioned about the assessment of resources. I think that's a good point. If you could think through, David, how and Jim, how we can embed in those checkpoints with the board, how far off are we, and also on the culture change, what do you want the culture to be? And then what are we doing to get there? I think that's going to be important as part of the strategic plan. So if you could give that some thought and somehow embed that in, I think that'd be helpful. Carly, does that get to what your comments are?
Yeah.
Great. Suzanne, did you have anything you want to add at this point before we move forward to Jim's comments?
No.
No? Okay.
I'm good.
With
Thank
that,
you very much.
A time check, it's about 11:40, almost 45. So I'll turn it over to Jim to give an update on the 45-day assessment. And before that, I just want to thank all those, not just you, but whoever did the work on this. I'm a grid person, so I understand things if you put it in a grid. Most people know that. And this is like speaks harmony to me to see exactly who's doing what when. And I really do appreciate the thought behind it. Very well done.
Great. Thank you, Terry. I'll attempt to go through my notes a little more quickly than I wrote them out, so I made sure I covered the key pieces to give you a 45-day update. Many of you will recall that as part of the search process, like, as a candidate for the position, I was asked to develop a 30, 60, 90, and 1-year plan. So I'm kind of using that as a little bit of a my own checkpoints to give you my 45-day report. As we've just got done discussing, one of the first things that I said that I would do in that plan is to launch a collaborative strategic planning process. This was launched formally at the University Welcome event, and we again laid out a good 8-month strategic planning process that I think the campus understands and is really well prepared to get excited with. I've also led a planning retreat with my cabinet on July 25th. I have to say that I'm very passionate about developing a high-functioning collaborative team to set the example for campus leadership throughout the university. I believe these early planning meetings have been very fruitful, candid, and helpful. And I have great confidence in my team in helping us to move the university forward. I also said in the plan that we prepare to launch JMU's next capital campaign. Certainly, the capital campaign will be much more successful if it is linked directly to the strategic plan. And we're working with university advancement. I think most of you are aware that we did a reimagining of the advancement division so that we've separated out the philanthropic arm from the marketing communications arm. And I'll actually be kicking off the strategic plan process with the first division I'm meeting with is the philanthropy and engagement division. I'll be doing it first thing this afternoon. I also indicated that I would be committing 25% of my time in the philanthropic efforts of the university. So again, I think that represents what I had spelled out in my first year plan. I think you know that I've traveled, I think I'm up to about 3,400 miles, all within the Commonwealth in the first 6 weeks on the job. Met with 62 individual business leaders throughout the Commonwealth and have been involved with alumni gatherings around the Coaches Caravan, as well as many of the alumni, we had more than 50, who are working at CarMax, and the visits have included almost every corner of the Commonwealth. With the help of the foundation board and with board of visitors, even before getting started, Nick had arranged, I believe we had 17 individual Zoom meetings with more of our benefactors who are across the country that I knew I wouldn't be able to get to meet in person, but had a good touch point and an ability to do follow-up with them as well. One of the other pieces I outlined in the report was an intention to connect with corporate leaders. Again, I mentioned that we've had a number of those meetings. We've met with more than 30 CEOs already, including a very productive meeting with Centura Health CEO Dennis Mathis and his team at Virginia Beach. Again, want to thank Terry for helping to open that door. Met with the CEOs at CarMax, Northrop Grumman, and Nova Health System, as well as many other smaller companies across the Commonwealth. My goal was to be the acknowledged partner, not only with private and nonprofit sector, but also want to be the preferred partner for the state of Virginia itself. I've had meetings with Governor Youngkin and his cabinet members. Was pleased to be in the room to hear his address along with the Secretary of Finance for the Joint Money Committee just last week. We held a reception for senators and delegates and JMU connected staff and lobbyists and friends in the Richmond area. We did that just last week as well. I mentioned I've met with the leadership of Chev, the CEO of Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and we've had introductory meetings with the Secretary of Agriculture and Forestry, Matthew Lowe, Secretary of Health and Human Services, Janet Kelly, and Secretary of Education, Annie Godera, as well. So we've met with local government leaderships as well, both Rockingham County and the city of Harrisonburg within my first few days in office. Part of the reorganization with advancement, again, was to have the creation of communications and marketing division. And we're in the process of having conversations with various search consultants to get that search launched right away this fall. I've been connecting with our athletes and coaches as they've come back to get ready for the fall seasons and had individual meetings with many of the teams. I've also had a chance to visit with the Marching Royal Dukes just 2 nights ago. Had a chance to address all 500 plus of them and got a chance to watch their practice. So I have a little bit of a preview of what we'll be seeing in just over a week's time as we host Weber State University on our campus. Internally, I've been very busy as well. I get to be in Harrisonburg all week, so I'm feeling pretty good that the first week of class, I'm spending the entire week on campus. Certainly having a chance to welcome our Dukes back to campus and make connections with the student body. But I've held a number of events to recognize all of our orientation leaders and residence life leadership. Those frontline student leaders make such a difference in the culture and the support of our campus. Done welcoming faculty and staff, all of the academic affairs, including attending dinner for all new faculty at the university. I've helped welcome the Student Affairs Division back at their kickoff meeting. Obviously, we have the University Welcome presented at Harrisonburg and Rockingham Chamber of Commerce, Business After Hours we hosted on campus. And I also have coming up, be representing JMU on the local chambers panel presidents, where I'll be joined on a panel by the presidents of Eastern Mennonite University, Bridgewater University, and Blue Ridge Community College, excuse me. And finally, also listed in that first several days that I had in my plan, I've had individual and group meetings with members of the local media. So, Madam Chair, members of the committee, we've been busy, and so far I'm more enthusiastic than I was even before we met in June. So things are off to a fast start.
What I would just start off with a question. I think Jeff might have something first. You want to go, Jeff? If you could, Jim, if you could summarize the external stakeholder response, are there a couple of words you could give that could describe the receptivity that you're getting?
Yeah, there's a real thirst, is what I've picked up, for a bold vision for the university. Everyone is so proud of JMU. They know that so much has been accomplished in the last 10 and 20 years. And I think it's that sense of accomplishment that has actually emboldened them to think even greater. And so, certainly meeting with, I've sensed that with government leaders, business leaders, nonprofit leaders, but I can say from our philanthropic community, my assessment is if we're able to paint a clear, bold vision and make sure that there are opportunities for greater investment in the university, I think that our requests and our opening really the opportunity for their engagement will be well received.
Great first impression, I think. And I would assume, David, that's going to be woven, or Jim, that's going to be woven into your communication plan, how you're going to get back and keep the stakeholders engaged. Right.
Yeah, and by the way, I've lost track, David maybe knows that 10 or a dozen listening sessions around the Commonwealth. And then I'm going to do some meetings down in Atlanta, attend the football game. We've got some things going on in Louisville around the football game. So we're going to be looking to get a lot of different data, a lot of different feedback. We're not only getting that feedback, but we're going to be setting the table, because one of the challenges and part of the culture change, back to Carly's perspective, in an atmosphere of scarcity, and some could say, given everything that's going on in higher ed, there's a tendency to lower your head and go into a bunker mentality. So the first thing we need to do is to get people to actually learn how to dream again. And so you got to set that table. You can't just walk in and say, tell me your hopes and dreams. You might get an answer, but I think you have to elevate it by using some examples of what might be possible.
Jim, how can this committee help you with the strategic plan from this point forward, or, in the immediate time, based on what you and David have already reviewed?
Well, I just have to, first of all, thank the rector for establishing this committee and for your leadership, Terry. We have an incredibly accomplished board of visitors, and you, of course, representing the leadership of the board and various committees and expertise. So continue to, make observations, areas that you think that seem on target from your perspective. I noted back in the piece, having really a separate, it doesn't have to be as detailed, but a separate plan on the culture is something I hadn't thought about. And I like being very specific and articulate and intentional about how we drive that into the structure. So there is a good example, giving us your feedback. Again, I have a great deal of confidence in the team with Chris and David and others that have been engaged with it, but I welcome that feedback. And these check-in meetings, I think, is how we're best structured to get that feedback. Also, by the way, as you hear something, again, invite you to channel those ideas back through the chair and to both me and David if you've got observations after a meeting or something you might pick up.
Okay, thank you. Chris, is there anything that you want to add before I go to the wrap up? I know you haven't had a chance to speak, and I know you're doing a lot of work on this. Thoughts?
I appreciate the insight and the thoughts. We are, when we talk about culture change, we've been doing a lot of work using ProSci methodology for reengineering medicine. And I think there's a lot that we can draw from how we have engaged with folks around campus in that culture change and incorporate that same language and the same thinking about awareness, driving awareness and desire and knowledge into the strategic plan as well. So I'm already thinking about ways that maybe we can incorporate that, and I'll be working with my other members of the lead team to think about that as we move forward into the plan. We're really thinking about that first announcement out to campus about the dates for idea forums, about launching a website. Really looking for that just after Labor Day and the days following that. And so that will be the next big push of communication out there. So we've also we're working to schedule one of the idea forums for the Friday after the board meeting, in case there are folks who can stick around and attend that one, because I know schedules are very challenging. And so we're trying to be accommodating, because I know that one of the things on the timeline was to have the board members attend at least one session. So hoping that might work, and we'll be communicating that out quickly, and we'll let you know, Madam Chair, what those dates are, and so you can get that out to, and we can work to get those dates to the board so that you all know when those idea forums are. And those are really meant to be workshop style, where people will sit at tables, think of ideas, share those out, but then also in writing, as well as be able to kind of post things around the room and have people react. So trying to make them as engaging as possible in those meetings.
Okay. And if you aren't able to make that Friday, if you outline those and members can't make that, are there also going to be any Zoom type meetings where you're doing visioning sessions? We could have those as an alternative, because I think that would be much better. I'm thinking about people that are especially far away might be an option too. So if you could think through that lens, that would be helpful.
Yes, I'm sorry, David, go ahead.
September 24th is the first external listening session of Jim's external tour. So that also would be a good one. And again, this has all been lights firming up, but we'll be able to communicate that.
If you could maybe shoot us a note with what are the options, so we know ahead of time, because many of us will have to make calendar changes. And if there's something that might be more appealing to our schedule than that date, that would be great to know.
And at least one of the sessions, we are planning to have it as virtual. And so there will be that opportunity, but there will also be opportunities to share feedback in general virtually and through digital, online survey that will be asking the same questions that we will ask. So folks, whether they want to attend in person or share their ideas and thoughts online, we're making sure we're trying to cover as many bases as we can to make this as wide of an ideation process as possible.
Okay. Any other questions before I go to the wrap up? Oh, okay. I want to make sure everybody talks, because I want to hear everything, every meeting. I want it to be value added. What I wrote down, and see if I listened well, we're going to develop a communication plan, and we would share it with this committee in September at our September meeting. Short talking points from the VP or committee chairs for each committee chair to have consistently. It'd be good to have it for all members, so Carly would know as well. And then we'll have an open-ended question that'll be consistent that we can put on the agenda for each of the committees from their lens. So from Nicole's, it would be like from the academic lens, from Jack's would be the governance lens, from Steve's the financial lens. And then all of the strategic plan documents are on the onboard. I noticed that there's one called strategic, and then there's another one called, there's two different names, and one's empty and one's got all the documents. So if you could just look at that and we can clean that up. I was thinking, I'm open to suggestions. We don't want to inundate you with the emails, but if there's something significant that you're placing on board, it might be helpful for this committee just to get a quick note. There's a new document on board for you to know, because we're not going to just go perusing. Maybe just do a quick roundtable before we leave on anything that's hanging it, or do you feel, my question would just be, do you feel prepared and you're got enough information to understand the roadmap of where we're going, how everyone's engaged, and is the communication that we've talked about sufficient? So I'll start with, I'm doing my Hollywood squares. I'm starting with Jeff. Any suggestions on that, Jeff, or thoughts that you have?
Nope, I think it's very clear and appreciate the work that's gone into it. Thanks.
Okay, great. Nicole?
Yeah, I ditto Jeff's comments. I thought it was very clear and precise, and I don't have any questions. Just thanks for all the folks who put that together, because I'm sure that was no small feat.
Very well done. Yep. Steve?
I agree. I think it was good session today, and I look forward to learning more about it.
Jack?
Nothing from me, thank you.
No? Okay, Carly?
I think it's well laid out, and we're clearly off to a great start with our new president, as well as Chris and David. I would just say that my inelegant summary of what we're trying to do with this strategic plan and with our new president is JMU has been punching below its weight for a long time. And we now need to punch at least at our weight, and I would argue above our weight for a while to make up for time. But I say that because I think this committee, one of our roles over time could be to be really supportive of President Schmidt and this team. This is a very aggressive timeline for a new strategic plan. We're talking about a plan, I think, that will be aggressive in its own right, punching above our weight. And so I think providing support for the inevitable slippage that's going to happen, that's just life. There's going to be some controversy that will happen. That also is life, particularly when you're trying to make some big, bold moves. So I think that can be a role for this committee going forward as well.
There will be some priorities that we'll have to agree to, and not everything, some things will be deleted, some things will be deferred, and then we'll figure out what the key things are that we want to accomplish. So I'm excited about it. Suzanne, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I'd just like to thank you and Steve for taking the leadership of the committee. I thank Jim for allowing me to push him hard to make sure the timeline was implemented next spring. I got a little bit of pushback, but not too much. I just felt like it was critical that we give him his marching orders, because as Carly has said, we've been punching below our level that we should be, and we need to get back up to speed. And I believe Jim and his team, with the help of this committee, can do that.
Well,
Thank
some
you,
of you
Terry.
that joined the committee early knew that I had this, and I was moving it out of the way because it's somebody gave this to me and said, "Thank you for helping me come out of my shell." So I'm gonna say Jim's pulling JMU out of the shell, right? We've been in the shell, we're out of the shell. I think meeting with the stakeholders, meeting with all those business leaders and the CEOs, not making a bold statement about we want to be your partner of choice. I mean, all those things fit into that strategic plan. And to Carly's point on the culture, you start living a certain way and it builds the culture. But I think it will be helpful to have those touch points. Jeff, do you have a comment? Nope. Okay. I know it's pretty exciting, I think. And I think just we're out there, you're meeting with all the folks. We've got a very transparent process. We'll share with the board. It's very professionally done. And business leaders, I can tell you, they will not be as receptive to a 24-month strategic planning process than this. This really speaks to, I think, businesses and to what Suzanne had asked. So really appreciate all the work that you guys have done, Chris and David and Jim, to accelerate this just in the planning part. And now we've got it all on a grid, so I know exactly where the milestones are, and I'm confident that we'll make them. So I think it's right about 12, and we're going to finish for this meeting. We'll join. I hope the Zoom calls are helpful. I feel like if we only do 4 meetings a year, that's too little, and your time is important. So we want to value that and make sure we stay under an hour. All right, with that, I'll conclude the meeting unless anyone has anything else.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Thank
everyone.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys. See everybody.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.